not the mayor, but I had to go over and say hello to him. I'm incredibly honored to be joined by an all-star cast of folks from both public service and private sector, beginning most importantly with our federal delegation, Senior Senator Bob Menendez, who we'll hear from in a minute. Both Congressman Josh Gottheimer and Congressman Bill Pascrell are with us this morning. Row 2 on seat A, they said would never be together, but we are. Please help me welcome a guy who's known well in New York, New Jersey, Randy Mastro, who is with us today and is our outside counsel. He is joined by a fellow King and Spalding partner, Craig Carpenito, who could not be with us today, but in absentia, I wanted to give Craig a shout out, and also our chief counsel, Paramel Garg, is with us. We have a veritable all-star lineup of state legislators. Senators Joe Lagana is with us today. Joe. Senator John Bramnick is with us today. John. Senator Gordon Johnson is in the House. From the Assembly, we have the Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin. Chris Tully, Lisa Swain, the aforementioned Benji Wimberly, Shama Hyder, Ellen Park. We also have Bergen County Commissioner, and when she speaks to me in her teacher's voice, I do what she tells me to do. Joan Voss is in the House. Joan. And we also have from our administration, State Treasurer Liz Boyle. Liz, great to have you. And the Chief Executive Officer of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, Tim Sullivan. So today, I am here to announce, I don't do this every day, I have to say, that we are suing to block New York's ill-conceived congestion pricing plan. That's the most applause I've gotten in 2.5 years. To be clear, we have always been receptive conceptually, right time, right program, to a congestion pricing proposal. We are, after all, I think if you look over the past 6 years, there's no state in America with a stronger environmental record than New Jersey. And as close neighbors, we have all spent enough time in Manhattan to understand the need to reduce traffic. Further, the effects of the climate crisis are on our doorstep, a fact that we all had to reckon with a few weeks ago in all that smoke and haze coming out of Canada, which we've had a revisiting of over the past week, and again this past weekend when I toured Warren County in particular, as thousands of residents face treacherous flooding. Unfortunately, New York's proposal will prompt toll shopping, where more drivers seek circuitous routes to avoid paying the highest tolls, resulting in more traffic and more pollution in certain areas. I think, Mark, unfortunately, Fort Lee being one of them. We're particularly disappointed by the lack of a thorough environmental impact review and the lack of mitigation measures for impacted communities like Fort Lee in New Jersey. Because this plan will cause greater traffic and release more chemicals and pollutants in New Jersey, as well as the Bronx, I might add, communities that are already disproportionately suffering from negative environmental impacts, our residents may expect higher rates of negative health consequences, including, among others, asthma. The MTA is well aware of these consequences, as evidenced by their plans to mitigate, not eliminate, but mitigate these impacts in the Bronx. But there are no such plans to help lessen the impact on New Jersey communities. And what's particularly unfair is that while the MTA is setting aside funds to mitigate these exact kinds of harms when they happen in the Bronx, New Jersey will get nothing, not one dime under the current proposal. So we'll bear the burdens of congestion pricing while New York City gets the benefits, and that is not fair. So today we are filing a lawsuit with Randy's help and Craig's against the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration. They're finding that the MTA's congestion pricing program will not have any significant environmental impacts is an error. Under the National Environmental Policy Act that Bob and Josh and Bill know very well, this type of project necessitated a full environmental impact review, and we are asking just that the federal courts force the United States Department of Transportation to comply with the law. Let me say unequivocally that we are proud of our relationship both with Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Eric Adams. I consider them friends. In fact, I was on with Governor Hochul this morning on another matter. We work in close partnership on a whole range of things, everyday items like security, counterterrorism, major events where the mayor and I will be together tomorrow promoting New Jersey for the Men's World Cup in 2026. It brings us zero joy to have to take this step. And I might add, the same can be said about the Biden administration. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. I consider these gentlemen friends, outstanding leaders. We agree and cooperate on a whole wide range of items literally every day, but not this. But at a time when prices are rising, this massive increase in tolls would mean hundreds of dollars a month for families that need that money for essentials. And the environmental cost is anathema to our shared obligation to protecting vulnerable communities from hazardous air quality. The bottom line is that we have to put our foot down to protect New Jerseyans. So as we've said many times, we have always been willing to discuss our concerns with the MTA and see if they can be mitigated. But we're not going to allow this poorly designed proposal to be fast-tracked when the law doesn't allow it. At its heart, this is a matter of New Jerseyans being treated fairly, and we will fight like tooth and nail to ensure that is the case. On that note, same church, different pew, I want to share that we're also here today to announce that we are protecting New Jerseyans who are being unfairly taxed by other states. The pandemic dramatically increased the number of folks working remotely. And so now there are a lot of New Jerseyans who both live and work here, but pay taxes to the state where their company is located, many of them New York. We want to make sure that New Jersey residents are being taxed fairly. So today, thanks to Joe and other sponsors, I am signing a bill that will help ensure New Jersey taxpayer dollars stay in our state and go toward programs and services that benefit New Jerseyans, bringing our policies in line with our neighboring states. This bill will bring our tax code in line with New York's, and it will allow New Jersey to tax remote employees who live out of state but work at New Jersey companies if that state has a similar tax rule. In other words, we will put symmetry into place here. I feel like the Ginsu knife commercial. Hold on. In addition, this bill provides tax credits for New Jersey residents who fight back against aggressive tax policies imposed on them by other states. So if New Jerseyans take this issue up with another state's tax authority and receive a tax refund for the work they did in New Jersey, we will provide that taxpayer with a credit, I think specifically 50% of the haul, which is not an insignificant incentive for somebody to take action. And finally, if that isn't enough, this bill will create a $35 million grant program administered by Tim and his colleagues at the EDA to encourage companies that mainly operate outside of our state to properly assign their employees that live in New Jersey, or who live in New Jersey, and to open offices here. This will help ensure that when workers pay taxes, the correct jurisdiction receives those tax dollars. As governor, and I can say I suspect for all of our elected officials here today, one of my primary responsibilities and duties is to make sure New Jerseyans are treated fairly. And that responsibility is at the heart of both of our announcements today. Now, it is my great honor to introduce an absolute fierce, there's no one like him, fighter on behalf of New Jersey's interests. Please help me welcome our senior senator, Bob Menendez.
Well, thank you, Governor, very much. And let me say, echo your remarks about it's great to be here in Fort Lee. Mayor Sokolich is one of our outstanding mayors in our state, runs a great community, and we appreciate him hosting us. And I want to start by thanking you, Governor, for your leadership, for your partnership, and for standing up for New Jerseyans, especially as we work hand in hand to defeat New Jersey's misguided congestion tax proposal. I appreciate my colleagues in Congress, Congressman Gottheimer, Congressman Pasquale, who have been at the forefront on this issue, an incredible legislative delegation from the state with the Speaker here, a bipartisan effort with Senator Lagana leading the way along with Senator Bramlett. It just says that when it comes to New Jersey, we are all together, regardless of party affiliation, and to an incredible Bergen County delegation that is here as well. In 2019, when New York's congestion tax proposal was still in its preliminary stages, Governor Murphy and I were asked what our response would be. As a united front on both a state and federal level, we drew a line in the sand, calling it a non-starter and a double tax on Garden State residents. Simply put, New Jersey commuters shouldn't have to pay twice. First, a hefty toll to cross the Hudson, and then a congestion pricing surcharge on top of it. Under no circumstances should the state of New York and its MTA make up its budget shortfall by squeezing every dollar from the neighbors across the river, which is why today, more than 3 years later, we continue to vehemently oppose this disastrous proposal. New York's congestion tax plan, in my view, is a brazen money grab. It's highway robbery. It's anti-middle class, anti-small business, anti-common sense for communities that call this side of the Hudson home. And I believe it also violates the Interstate Commerce Clause. And every single one of us here today will not stop, we will not quit, until this harmful policy is reconsidered and rescinded. Earlier this year, when the Department of Transportation allowed this congestion tax to move forward, there was an immediate outcry from New Jersey leaders. Governor Murphy called it unfair, misguided, ill-advised. Congressman Gottheimer said it was a cash grab by the MTA. On my end, I called it a tax shakedown, a slap in the face to the fundamental idea of democracy and fairness between our two states. But no matter the choice of words we use for this proposal, and you should know you've done something wrong when you tick off the entire state of New Jersey, no matter what we call it, we're in lockstep agreement that it's time to fight back and defeat this proposal. Here in the Garden State, we don't mince words. We say what we mean, and we mean what we say. So when I say that we're going to use every tool we have to oppose New York's congestion pricing plan, I mean it. To that end, I've introduced legislation with almost the entire New Jersey delegation that would protect our state's commuters and impose highway sanctions on New York if they continue on this outrageous path. It would require New York to meaningfully engage with New Jersey and receive consent from us before implementing their plan, guaranteeing New Jersey had a seat at the table for any future congestion pricing proposals. Their actions would materially affect not only our pocketbooks, but the well-being of our residents, which is why, as an enforcement mechanism, if New York decides to barge ahead with their misguided plan, under my bill, they would lose up to 50% of the federal highway funds. That's right, half. Now, some might call this strategy hardball, but then again, those people clearly don't understand that we will do everything within our power to protect New Jerseyans. If any state, be it New York or any other, wants to shake down New Jerseyans in order to balance their budget, they have another thing coming. Now, I take no joy in suggesting that we should cut New York's federal transportation funding, but when you make decisions that affect the quality of life of our residents and you give us no say, no participation, no consideration as to the consequences, then you have brought onto yourself what's coming. So if they don't, they should abandon their arrogant plans to charge up to $23 a day to out-of-state commuters who are facing high tolls and rising costs of life as it is. So we strongly support the governor's lawsuit against New York. We support him, oppose this plan, because it was unilaterally given the green light in a haphazard and scientifically unsound way. By the MTA's own admission, this congestion tax plan will increase traffic congestion and airborne pollution in Bergen County. That's careless at best and callously cruel at worst. According to projections, this congestion pricing plan would also strip the Port Authority of nearly $1 billion in lost revenue, leaving them vulnerable to delaying long overdue capital projects that are about mobility, quality of life, the environment, and therefore would be delayed. That is a huge consequence to bi-state residents. And despite clear evidence that New York's plan would increase particulate matters in communities in New Jersey, the Federal Department of Transportation approved the congestion tax without conducting a full environmental impact statement. As I told Secretary Buttigieg in a call I had with him in the last 2 weeks, that is both scientifically unsound and a dangerous precedent to set. Under the laws established in 1970 by the National Environmental Policy Act, federal agencies must evaluate the effects of their actions on the air we breathe, the water we drink, and so on. They must ensure that impacted communities can provide input into the process. The Department of Transportation and project sponsors in New York clearly failed to do that with congestion pricing. By issuing a so-called environmental assessment instead of a full-scale environmental impact statement, federal bureaucrats simply kicked the can down the road, shirking their responsibility to fully consider the environmental costs of their actions. Those consequences are unacceptable for our citizens. So we will not stand by as New Jerseyans are left holding the bag when transit officials in New York or DOT officials in Washington make bad decisions. The congestion pricing plan is a no-win, lose-lose scenario for our state's families and small businesses who rely on the bridge and the tunnels every day. To exclude New Jersey voices from decision-making, to push through a sorry excuse for an environmental study, to run roughshod over the rights of Garden State residents is something we cannot stand for. With their actions, New York and the MTA have clearly shown that they will spare no expense to balance their budget on the backs of middle-class families in our state. We have to protect our residents from an unprovoked power grab. New Jersey will never lay down when it is threatened by bullies. We will always fight back when economic opportunity and quality of life are at risk, and we will relentlessly use every tool at our disposal to stop congestion pricing plan in its tracks. That's a Jersey promise. Thank you very much.
Senator, thank you. That was awesome, and I can't thank you enough for your leadership, and I don't know where we'd be without you. Right beside you in this fight from day one, every single day, another great leader has been out there protecting the interest of not just his district, but of the state more broadly. Please help me welcome Congressman Josh Gottheimer.
Thank you, Governor. Mayor, thanks so much for having us. Appreciate it. Incredible star-studded cast, as the governor said. Congressman Pasquale, our unbelievable senior senator, Bob Menendez, incredible leader, Assemblywoman Park and Hayter, and Senator Bramnick, and Assemblyman Wimberly, and Benson, Commissioner Voss, and great Senator Lagana, who's a big day for Tully and Swain and Lagana for their legislation. Our incredible leader in the Assembly, Mr. Coughlin, who does just an incredible job, Senator Johnson. Thank you so much for what you all do every day. I'm excited for that bill signing, because that's going to make a huge difference for Jersey and making sure we get more jobs into our state. Proud to have worked with you guys early on in this legislation. It's incredible what you've gotten across the finish line. And if New York keeps doing what they're doing, including the congestion tax, they'll continue to drive more jobs and businesses into Jersey across the GW Bridge into our state, and we're very ready to welcome them. Today is a huge day in the fight against New York's commuter-crushing congestion tax. If the MTA gets their way, less than a year from now, right near here at the GW Bridge, hardworking Jersey families will be stuck with $23 a day tax, $5,000 a year, just to drive to work in New York City. That's on top, as Bob said, of the $17 they pay a day already. It's on top of parking, it's on top of gas. Just think about it. It's basically $100 before you even buy a cup of coffee to go across the bridge. It will also cost the Port Authority nearly $1 billion in investment for capital projects over the next decade, meaning fewer jobs for hardworking men and women of labor and fewer infrastructure improvements for us in Jersey. And because of the congestion tax, come next spring, trucks will be backed up here in North Jersey as far as the eye can see, billowing cancer-causing pollution into the lungs of children in our communities. Plumes of carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, particulate matter, and even formaldehyde, a known carcinogen, into northern New Jersey, and as the governor pointed out, into the outer boroughs. Don't take my word for it, ask the MTA. All of this is in black and white in the report the MTA submitted to the U.S. Department of Transportation, that the Department of Transportation decided to summarily ignore those findings and rubber stamp their approval without an in-depth environmental review. A little odd for an administration that claims to be committed to protecting the environment. That's what's behind this powerful lawsuit the governor announced, and I want to thank the governor for punching back at a state that decided to use Jersey as their piggy bank to solve their years of criminal mismanagement at the MTA, the worst-run mass transit system in the entire nation. Governor, it is great to see Jersey's strength on full display. We always and will always have your back on this fight across our congressional delegation, on both sides of the aisle, in Trenton, and even members of Congress in New York who wanted to send my regards for what you're doing today. 4 years ago, along with others, I sounded the alarm on what New York was planning. Now we're all here together to get the backs of hardworking Jersey families and commuters. And anyone in Jersey knows, if you screw with Jersey, buckle up, we're not backing down. New York and the MTA don't seem to care about the environmental damage the congestion tax will cause, or the massive new traffic at the bridge and at the two tunnels. And they clearly don't care about the nurses, electricians, Uber drivers, and restaurant workers who will suddenly have to find an extra $5,000 a year to pay to get to work. That's after tax dollars, by the way. These people have to work an entire extra day a week to pay for the extra $23 a day congestion tax. You just literally need to give them an extra day, New York, to pay for this new tax you're trying to levy on hardworking commuters. For the MTA, it's just a cash grab. They have a $3 billion budget deficit caused by their woeful mismanagement. They lost $700 million last year to fare skippers alone. Yep, people who just decided to ride and not pay. So they need Jersey to pour our hard-earned dollars into their bottomless black pit over there. Not a nickel will go to Jersey to invest in our mass transit. Not a nickel to address the environmental and health impacts from the congestion tax. A treatment program for their children. Not a nickel to Jersey for our children. I don't know how the MTA chairman looks at himself in the mirror at night. The MTA chairman should come to Fort Lee and look Mayor Sokolich in the eye and tell him why it's okay to give cancer to the children in our communities. Last points I want to make. I've been speaking to mayors in northern New Jersey in my district, and my bet is that Jono and the MTA can expect even more lawsuits. And that's, by the way, on top of what Bob, Bill, and I and others are doing in Washington to defund the MTA if they want to go ahead with this plan and think that New Jersey folks should pay even more out of our pockets for their mismanagement. They get $2 billion a year right now, and then they want to stick it to us even more? I don't think so. Just this week, the MTA met to discuss how badly they're planning to stick it to Jersey, by the way, without any input from any of us. My kind recommendation to them: don't blow 100 years of cooperation together with the Port Authority. Do the right thing. Clean up the MTA and find another way with New York's $229 billion annual budget to pay your own bills, to clean up your own mess. Don't make the hardworking nurse in Jersey who has an overnight shift in your hospital in New York pick up the tab for your mess. I'll tell you this, we won't stop fighting. We just don't take a punch here in Jersey, we punch back. And that's what we're doing today. That's what this lawsuit does. This is about our hardworking families and the air we breathe here in Jersey. That's how I know here in the greatest state, in the greatest country, our best days will always be ahead of us. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless our families. Thanks.
hope someday we can find a topic that Josh really cares about. Obviously just mailed it in today. Great job, man. I'm calling an audible. And by the way, Josh and Bob, obviously we've heard from. Corey's not here. He's with us 1,000%. Mikey Sherrill, Rob Menendez, Donald Payne, anybody who's associated even remotely with the northern part of the state is all in on this. But I wonder if I could call an audible and ask Bill Pascrell to come up and spend a minute or two, because he's all over this as well. Bill, do you mind?
I changed my mind. I'm more committed to this than I was when I walked in. So I feel very comfortable. You know, I like to take on the jobs that are going to take long, and you need to persist. On the day that Josh and I were on GW Bridge and announced this fight a couple of years ago, I got home 2 hours later and Governor Cuomo called me. His first words were, "I thought we were friends." I said, "Governor, we could be friends, but this plan stinks." He says, "Well, I'm not going to convince you on the phone, am I?" I says, "You're never going to convince me. The way you treat New Jersey, I have a payback for you." Of course, I didn't wish him any harm, but whatever happened to the guy. So it's a pleasure to be back in Fort Lee. And I can't thank you enough for all the courtesies you showed me for 10 years. I hope I didn't let you down. I will try to keep this short. For me, that's pretty good. Less diplomatic than my colleagues, even the governor. The leaders of New York are telling the great people of New Jersey to drop dead. That's Patterson style. The Empire State looks across the river, and what they see is not a great state of 9 million souls. They see $9 million signs. Let me be crystal clear. The Garden State is not New York's piggy bank. We are not the MTA's ATM, period. And if they don't know that by now, they're going to learn it over the next month, years, who knows? You may be the president by then, who knows, you know. Things happen. New Jersey has been our region's pack mule for a long time. Enough is enough. We say no more of their weight on our shoulders. New Yorkers should fill New York's budget shortfalls, period. Federal highways will hear from our lawyers for rubber stamping an environmental assessment that never got meaningful input from New Jersey. That's the thing that really ticks me off the most, that we were not really consulted on environmental matters. So, in fact, I just thought of it now, the eastern bridges pay nothing. There's no tolls on the eastern bridges off of Manhattan. What, are they kidding me? New York must provide full toll credits for our commuters, and they must exempt our buses. How many thousands use that every day? Governor Murphy's leadership is indispensable. I look forward to using every legal tool, Governor. If they will not give us a fair deal, I hope we sue the pants off of New York. I don't want to wait for that day. I introduced the Stop New Jersey Congestion Act with Senator Menendez. last month, June, to sanction New York for ignoring us. New Jersey state and federal leaders are united in telling New York their scheme is more garbage, and then the old Staten Island landfill. There's more garbage in this deal. I thank you, and I hope that you'll take the time to look at the history of this problem, the chronology. They don't understand what the governor's talking about, what Senator Menendez is talking about, and what Congressman Gottheimer is talking about, and our senators in the state that have done such a fantastic job. Thank you, Senator, for the job you've done. And wow, we're working all on the same page. Thank you for listening. Do your homework, media, please, on this subject. It's going to be very important. God bless.